Right, I'm live. The first thing I want to check is, can everybody hear me? I don't know if anyone's in chat at the moment, but if you can you type something so I know that you're there? I'm just signing into. Oh, it wants me to sign in. Can you let me know if you're there? For some reason, it's taken off my chat. I'll be 2 seconds. Yeah, sorry about that. For some reason, like when I clicked on I've got like a thing on OBS where it like has the chat bar, and I clicked on it, and it just kind of then was asking me to sign in. So it was really awkward. So I've done it like as a new tab. As you can see, I have come well prepared. Didn't quite start on time, but I have got my trusty cat ears, so I have a feeling everything is actually going to go really well. Yeah, so the entire day has been spent trying to set this up. I have no idea whether it's actually going to work properly. There are probably going to be heaps of technical errors. So professionalism. This is going to be highly professional, as you can already tell. So yeah. So how is everybody? For me, it's been kind of miserable outside today, so I've just been in trying to get like everything to sort of work properly, and like I've never done live streaming before, so some people were asking me why I chose to do this on YouTube rather than on Twitch. The answer for that is I'm a boomer, and I have like Twitch confuses me. Like I had a look at it the other day, and it was like a lot of stuff. It was a lot. So I am eventually planning, like if this goes well, like I'll go on Twitch as well. I'll probably do that too. It's just that I'm gonna sort of start off with YouTube because I'm very familiar with YouTube, and then like, you know, start off with something I know, and then build up to hopefully something a bit more, you know, like advanced, and, you know, like incorporate both Twitch and YouTube. So like I'd stream on Twitch and then upload the video, like the clips and everything, to YouTube when I'm done with that. So that's kind of the long-term plan. But I thought I'd just start off with something small, like with YouTube at first. So I guess what I really wanted to kind of start this off with was like a quick sort of discussion on what I kind of plan this channel to kind of be, because I kind of consider myself to be a bit of a boomer, like, because like to me boomer is kind of you know, it's more of a mentality rather than a person. Like I know it literally is meant to be somebody who's middle-aged, but I feel it's more like a kind of that confused, I don't know what technology is, I don't know what anything is kind of mentality. So yeah, I feel like it kind of applies to me here. Yeah, so what I kind of wanted this channel to be, initially I started it a couple of years ago doing like video essays and things like that. But you know, what with life happening and like getting a job and you know, that kind of stuff, it's really hard to like fit everything in. My last video I did was on the coronavirus here in the UK, and I actually started it when it was relevant, and I finished it when it was not not really relevant as a topic anymore. I mean, people were still interested, but like I was talking about the beginning of the pandemic. So yeah, so I've just felt like video essay wise, it takes such a long time to kind of edit everything, get everything together. you know, that I felt like there's so many sort of current topics that I'd like to talk about, that I felt live streaming might be a better option, because I could get started with this, and then I could, you know, if there's like a specific topic I want to do as a video essay, I can like dedicate a bit more time to that, because I've spent, you know, more of my time on this. And I think really in general, I've felt very disillusioned with the current discourse online. I found a lot of leftist stuff recently in particular has kind of bothered me. I left Twitter last year because of a lot of the toxicity on the website. I'm kind of hoping to go a bit back to it now, but like at a distance. Part of the toxicity, I kind of feel is like there's not a lot of discussion. Sometimes I feel like people make assumptions about what other people think in leftist spaces. There's a lot of bullying that goes on. I think there's also a sense of people not learning from mistakes, and people not trying to learn. Like, I feel like somebody will like make a political take, like a political, you know, they'll spout whatever they think, but like not try and develop that any further. I find a lot of YouTubers are very stubborn, and I think that's why I've been reluctant to make live streams and things like that myself, because I've always thought, well, I'm not firm enough in my own opinions. But then I think actually that's kind of a good thing. You know, I'm kind of glad that I'm kind of glad that I don't have that kind of rigid opinion. I do change my opinions if there's suitable evidence that kind of goes against it. And I kind of like to move YouTube more in that direction. Like, I feel like so much of it is just so heavy-handed and like shaming people into believing certain things. I don't really think that that's needed. I think that our points are or should be good enough to stand on their own. So there's that side of things. I also found with everything that's happened in Ukraine, a lot of people who I trusted and believed in and admired politically have said things that I just can't tolerate it. I find it really reprehensible. I'm not saying you can't look at the nuance in the situation, but there's you know, there's so much going on, you know, in Ukraine. It's pretty obvious what we're seeing, and I just don't like these people who seem to think that if you're a leftist, you've got to kiss Putin's arse kind of thing. It's not my sort of thing, and I'm quite angry to see a lot of people who I had favourable opinions kind of go in that kind of direction of certainly enabling Putin at the very least. So kind of want to move away from that. And I think it kind of made me realise, like, I always sort of talk down about my own views and, you know, feel like I don't really have much of a space on LeftTube. But then I see what, like, the mainstream opinion is, and I think, oh my God, like, there are experts with, like, awful Ukraine takes. So, yeah, so that was kind of what the direction that I've been thinking of going in. So I don't want to spend obviously too long talking about my ideas for the channel. I've got some more things that I kind of want to talk about at a certain point. But for now, you know, I kind of, you know, just kind of like want to have like a general discussion. So kind of what I was hoping for this to be is that, you know, I do some research beforehand, but at the same time I kind of want to go into some Am I back online? Because I legitimately cannot tell. My computer went off. I'm so angry. Can someone type something in chat if I'm still on live? Because I genuinely have no idea what happened. Please tell me someone's still there. Oh my God. I'm actually gonna scream. Oh, thank God. My computer. Wow. now. It just sort of shut down. I was like, I'm doing updates. I'm doing updates. You want to live stream? You dared to believe you could live stream. You do not know my power. I shut down and do updates when I want. Oh my god. Oh my actual god. Now it wanted to do updates. Right, so I'm back. I'm hoping that is the only time that is going to happen. If it happens again, I'm going to have to rethink and see what the hell is going on with my equipment. Hopefully that is the end of that. I was saying some really insightful stuff beforehand. I think the computer was just intimidated, to be quite honest. I think it was really impressed with what I was saying. So yeah, hopefully I'm back now. My battery life is still pretty good, so probably need to put it to charge a bit. But anyway, yeah. So I think, as I was saying, I was really angry at some of the stuff that was like going on in terms of like Ukraine and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is, I think I have a very technical schedule all planned out, very professional as always. So I thought we'd maybe like, I had quite a few topics planned out. I don't know whether I'm actually going to be able to go through all of them because, you know, it's just kind of hard to get on top of absolutely everything in one stream. Especially since I've already had a couple of like technical difficulties. So I think if I just like try and go through like the main ones, and then if there's any like topics that I can't get done this week, I can always do them next week or the one after. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. So I think everyone's gonna have to bear with me because, as I've said, I am a boomer. I'm a little old cat lady. And I may press the wrong button. The world may implode. So I'm gonna give it a try. I've got a bar of chocolate. It's all very exciting. So we're gonna start off with Ukraine because, as I was saying, this was kind of a catalyst for me. I was so angry at some of the really awful takes I've seen, mainly from Western leftists. So I kind of want to, yeah, take a look at some really awful takes from that kind of crowd. But before that, I want to read an article. I'm not actually sure, like in terms of like copyright, like how much you can actually use under fair use. So I'm not going to like read the entire thing, but I am critiquing it. So I think that classes as fair use. So I'm going to take a look at an article that I thought was really interesting. You might have seen it on Facebook or on Twitter. It was published in Freedom Press about Western leftist West-splaining. And I thought it was a really interesting concept, and I thought like the way that the writer kind of explained it was super interesting. So I'm gonna, as sort of the first thing, I'm gonna kind of like have a look, read through and like discuss some of my thoughts. So I'm gonna switch over to, oops. Hey, wrong button pressed already. So I'm gonna switch over to screen capture. Is it working? No. Why would it be working? Right, give me 2 seconds. Just imagine that there's something absolutely wonderful on the screen right now. You're seeing something that is just, you're just amazed. You are astounded. Hey, I actually did it. Oh my god. I deserve an award for brain. I think the cat ears are like really helping. I think they're really helping me. Look, Putin and a cute puffy dog. Lovely. Lovely image. So yeah, so this is a blog post. It doesn't mention who it's by. I think it mentions who it's written by at the end, and it's called Fuck Leftist West-splaining. And when I saw this, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I absolutely love this. Just because I feel like there are so many people who, if you want to kind of be flexible with some of your ideas. Like if you want to say, you know, in general, I support leftism, but I think imperialism from, you know, like the former Soviet Union, I don't think that that's a good thing. You know, I don't really particularly like that. They kind of seem to think that, you know, you can't be a leftist and have those kinds of views. And that really infuriates me, because I just don't think, I think it's troubling if you view yourself as a socialist and then you support authoritarian dictatorships and you view those things as kind of, you know, like they're required to go together. I find that, I don't know, I find that very troubling. I don't really view, you know, I don't really view those things as going together. And I think it's a very cynical and depressing view of socialism if you like think that those two things have to go together. So enough of me. So we're going to have a little read through and I'll give my thoughts. So this was published on the 4th of March, so roughly about a month ago. So it reads, earlier this week, the Polish parliamentary progressive left party Razem, I think, issued a statement in which they announced that they are cutting ties with two European organisations, Progressive International and DiEM25. I've probably pronounced that completely incorrectly. The Russian aggression in Ukraine demands a lot of work from us, and unfortunately, explaining of many issues to the West European left, Razem states on their socials, yesterday our National Council decided to leave Progressive International and DiEM25. Why? For reasons incomprehensible to us, both movements did not unequivocally condemn the imperialist and aggressive actions of the Russian Federation and did not unequivocally, that's a big word for me, support the sovereignty of Ukraine, dangerously relativizing this war. I support this very polite and carefully worded statement. But this is freedom, so let me deliver this message by Razem differently. Fuck you, or at the very least, shut the fuck up. This text isn't specifically about Western anarchists. Despite an odd Ukraine's Nazi army here and there, I think the anarchists are not too bad on the issues of Russian imperialism, both presently and historically. Some more work needs doing for sure, but especially compared to some other parts of the UK and wider Western left, I give my anarchist comrades a B- here. You still know fuck all about Eastern Europe, and the only word in the relevant languages you are familiar with is Kurwa. I'm not even familiar with that. But at least most of you are not struggling to establish who is the baddie in the current situation. Now you pathetic tankies and other cranks, it's your attention we wish to have for the next few paragraphs. So the person who's written this, I believe they say later on that they're Eastern European. They're clearly very, very angry. And I think that they have a very, very good reason to be angry. I feel like there's a certain type of leftist who, as I was saying earlier, I feel like their entire idea of what being a leftist is just like a circle jerk of being a leftist. Like, you kind of say, like, I'm a leftist, I support, like, communism or, you know, anarchism or whatever. And then, like, everything else is kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's all about, like, fulfilling that. It's not about actually thinking, what is my idea of an ideal society? What do I want to see, you know, in the future? Where do I want to see the world progress? You know, like, what are my ideas? What are my beliefs? I feel like for some people it is an aesthetic. And I think the author of this article goes on to describe this later on, like, for certain types of socialists, like, it's not even about, like, wanting to achieve a society where everybody is fed and clothed and has a roof over their head. It's not even about that. It's just about Stalin memes, basically. And I think, like, I guess what they're kind of saying, like, in terms of, like, anarchist comrades, like, you know, like, they're not doing, like, too badly. It's mainly, like, the tankies that are the problem, but, like, even anybody involved like could do with learning a little bit more about like Eastern European history and you know, in general, like politics in Eastern Europe. I had not realized how little I knew about Eastern Europe, particularly Ukraine, until all of this kind of happened. And yeah, it does kind of make you realize, you know, like how ignorant you might be on a particular subject. Like there's a lot I didn't really realize. So this text isn't exclusively about the ongoing Russian invasion in Ukraine, either, as much as it is about a much wider trend in Western leftism. Yes, you can apply the points raised below not only to the discourse around Eastern Europe and the so-called post-Soviet world. Similar themes were disgracefully displayed in the leftist discussion around the Syrian war, for example. Large parts of the left, supported by their glorious leader Jeremy Corbyn, struggled to identify who is in charge of the vast majority of the war crimes committed in Syria. Spoilers, it was, of course, Assad, supported by Putin. This is so important. I mean, you know, I feel like there is like this huge problem in the UK left, and I am not going to be well liked in saying this. Like, I liked aspects of Jeremy Corbyn's leadership. You know, I voted for Jeremy Corbyn, and you know, like within the UK, like some of his policy ideas, some of it, you know, he did take the Labour Party in a good direction in a lot of ways. But I do feel there is this kind of hero worship of Corbyn in the UK left. Like, you can't criticize him properly and like look at the wider situation without people saying, oh, you know, you support Keir Starmer or whatever. And it's like, I really do not. You know, in many respects, I prefer Corbyn to Starmer. But I think at the same time, you know, I feel like the UK left does not look at anything outside of Corbyn in terms of politics. You know, like, he's not the same as like Bernie Sanders or you know, he's not an, you know, like the exact same type of figure. And I think the way that he handled Syria, and the way a lot of UK leftists in general kind of handled Syria and now Ukraine, is just incredibly disappointing. And I really agree with this part. Large parts of the left struggle to identify who is in charge of the vast majority of the war crimes committed in Syria. It's like so many leftists are like, I just don't know. I mean, this Putin guy, you know, like, he seems to be invading Ukraine, and he seems to be, you know, like aggressively trying to open out his borders of his country and bring in other countries, you know, into Russia. I wonder if this is Ukraine's fault somehow, you know, like, or it must be NATO's fault somehow. And, you know, like, obviously it is a complex thing with NATO, but like, as has already been discussed, like, Ukraine wants to be part of NATO. NATO so far hasn't really done anything. In fact, they've not really done much to support Ukraine at all. At some point, you know, you have to accept that it is Russia that is the aggressor here. But I feel like so much of this, like, oh, I just do not know who possibly could be behind this conflict. You know, it's like this reluctance to say anything against a country that, you know, was in some way, formally, I might add, the Soviet Union. It's not the Soviet Union anymore. Even if it was, it still wouldn't be excusable. But I feel like so many people just want to support that, you know, like a communist country that they can stand, you know, rather than, you know, just like looking at the situation, looking at the whole thing. So again, you know, I'm not saying I'm against Jeremy Corbyn or anything. I just think that, like, this, you know, like, I do feel like some people in the UK left, like, there's this hero worship thing going on, and without looking at the wider context. So yeah, but while back in the day I partook in some serious solidarity actions, I also do not think it is my place to speak about this conflict. The best people to do this, and if they are so inclined, they say, be my guest. This text was written with consultations with other Eastern European comrades. I am signing it with my name, mainly so you can then give me the joy of an accusation of myself being CIA funded or something. But be informed that many East Europe leftists are on the same page here, and we have been discussing it for a while now. Ah yes, the accusation of being CIA funded. Like if you criticize a leftist, it's just that you are you're a CIA agent. You know, like, to me, like, if somebody is leftist, it just means that they support workers' rights to own the means of production and, you know, like, to have a roof over the head, things like that. But if you have those views and you simultaneously criticize Russia or a former communist country, you are suddenly CIA funded. I really hate that insult. This text will be a bit chaotic and I request you put up with this. Like most Eastern Europeans, I've spent the past week or so living in some kind of haze. When news cycles really last 24 hours, there is no sleep and your phone rings constantly. Some of my friends, those from Central and Eastern Europe mostly, want to share their worries. They are organising support networks, collecting money, publishing how to flee Ukraine guides in multiple languages, cooking, driving scared and exhausted people to their temporary accommodation. Many, rightfully, share their disgust in the differences in how the Polish state and society, and wider European states and societies, approach another refugee crisis just a bit further north, on the Belarusian parts of the Polish border, or the refugee crisis in other parts of Europe. Some are facing the very real possibility of finding themselves in combat soon. Some worry about their family currently in a war zone. Some are in this war zone themselves. All are angry, all are sad, to the point you are unlikely to understand. While you're exchanging hot takes on Twitter, we are busy. I mean, this is just it, basically. The Ukrainian people are going through hell. I mean, they are going through hell on earth. They are going through things that we cannot expect, that we cannot imagine, that we can't even fathom right now. And I think, meanwhile, people are exchanging hot takes on Twitter about, like, maybe if Ukraine had just been more docile, maybe it's what Ukraine was wearing at the time that caused Putin to commit this action. I feel like, yeah, like you can talk about the nuance in a political situation, in a situation of war. That's absolutely fine. But in terms of action, like, you've got to do something. You can't just go, oh, just like, there's so much nuance in it. Let's all have a sit down and have a conversation. Like, Ukrainians are dying. Like, Ukrainians are being bombed and shelled and murdered and are fleeing their country. You can't just sort of twiddle your thumbs and go, like, maybe we could have done that a bit better, and like maybe then NATO could have done that a bit. And it's like yeah, maybe have that conversation to the side, but like right now what matters is Ukraine. And I just feel, it's that same, like I was saying, it's like that same like victim blaming that I see, like it happens on like an interpersonal level, like with, like with the way that women are treated, and like in terms of like sexual harassment. It's like, like what was she wearing, what was she doing to bring that upon herself? And it's like Ukraine was doing literally nothing to deserve this. In fact, they were actively frightened of Russia, which I think is why they wanted to join NATO in the first place. And I think, this is obviously like an excuse for Russia to go and like do what they've been intending to the entire time. So yeah, it's just, it really angers me, like, Western leftists are incredibly far removed from what is actually going on. So yeah, I'm not saying they're not allowed to have an opinion on it. I'm just saying, I think you have to take a step back and see that you're not actually physically involved in this conflict and you don't know what's going on. And, now is not the time to be stunning your favourite former Soviet country. Every day I wake up and the first thought in my head is the Russian army is invading Ukraine. After a few days of a sluggish parade, it looks like they are now seriously aiming at Kiev. I have never thought... I know I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly. I do need to look up like the actual pronunciation. I have never thought I will be coming up with such sentences in a present tense. It is terrifying. You, the Westerners, will never get it, partially because most of you have a completely different experience of history, and it is that of living your life in a dominating country. Partially because you can't be asked to listen, and you never were. It is just simply inconvenient for you to give an idea that won't fit to your already established view the world of thought, and let's face it, deep down most of you think that your ideas and your concepts are better and more legitimate. Western exceptionalism is a worm in your brain, a worm you pretend to escape only to parade your Yankee Queen of England ignorance around. You are better and more legit, you have better insights, you are used to being listened to. You're not going to use Google Translate, because how come things are not in English? The terror. I mean, yeah, that's pretty true. I think a lot of Westerners do behave like that, and I think a lot of Western leftists are of the impression that because they're socialists now, like, they are above this. It is not true, I can confirm. But the Westerners call too, so I do my best to explain the basic stuff I grew up with and some of the stuff that was passed on to me by the generations of trauma. What is the correct pronunciation of Kharkiv? Or the worst, they want to explain to me how this is a NATO-created conflict. Or if they happen to feel more generous, they come up with some kind of both sides to blame rhetoric. Look, Ukrainians are waving national flags, fascists. If we could erase and dismiss your entire regions as easily as you do ours, we absolutely would. Sadly, the internet is once again also pretty much controlled by your lot. Well done. Direct action right now would be to log off. At least our timelines would be polluted less. Yeah, I mean, like, this kind of thing where it's like, oh, you know, you'll get people who are like, oh, Ukraine, that, you know, like, they're all filled with fascists because of, as you know, Azov battalion, and, you know, like, it's all fascism. It's like, you know, like, just because, like, they're concerned about the state of their country, like, in terms of, like, you know, like waving a national flag, that does not associate them with fascism. And like every part of every country's army is going to have like a bunch of fascists who are attracted to it. There are far more fascists in the Russian government and the Russian military right now. And, you know, like people should be aware of like the, I believe there was an article, I'll probably have a look at it at some point on stream, about like, prison camps, I think in like the Donbass region, which were run by separatists that were pretty horrifying as well. So I feel slightly disturbed by the leftists who will like accuse Ukrainians of being fascists, because they're really not rooting for the right side there. Your lack of knowledge on the issues of Russia and the rest of the world formerly behind the Iron Curtain is frankly astonishing, surprising, and the lack of curiosity shameful. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what I was discussing earlier, the lack of curiosity. I feel like there are so many leftists who like that's my opinion. My work here is done. I've had an opinion. You know, I'm just going to stick to that. I'm not like going to bother and, you know, like developing my understanding. I'm not gonna like bother to you know, develop some new ideas, you know, like see if like challenge my ideas at all. Like I'm just gonna stick with that, and that's something like I also find troubling. In London and the wider UK, you've got comrades coming from all these countries that joined the EU since 2004, and apparently you have never bothered to even attempt to understand what we are about. We were good for some things, mainly in the leftist reflection of the mainstream trope of a Polish builder or Lithuanian cleaner. Good, hard-working, simple people. We were good for more hands-on stuff, but never good enough for actually having opinions. Apparently, even about the stuff we grew up with, the unique version of Orientalism that you hold towards us, seeing us either as simpletons or racist, primitive, but honourable. You know exactly what we mean, admit it. I mean, yeah, I think, like, the leftist reflection of the mainstream trope of Polish builder, you know, like, it's like, oh, you know, leftists will defend Eastern Europeans in terms of like, oh, you know, we we stand firmly against racism towards like Eastern European people, you know, like they work hard doing these lower paying jobs or whatever. But it's like, once an Eastern European person has an opinion about a communist country that they grew up in, that they have like horrific memories of, or they've seen like the impact of it, suddenly leftists are like, nope, bye. Bye, Eastern European stereotype. We no longer care about you. You know, like, we enjoyed it when you were like a good, nice Eastern European stereotype. But now that you are questioning, you know, like our vision of leftist ideals, we no longer care. So yeah, that's pretty gross. I came to the UK in 2004, 18 years ago. Culturally, it was and still is a very bizarre experience, and maybe one day I will write another rant about it. One of the aspects of it is the tolerance, or simply embracement, of the Soviet imagery and sentiments. The sentiments and imagery, let me point out, that do not belong to you. At some point, you guys made Red London, a Stalinist page, the most popular leftist Facebook in the country. Oh my god, I have never heard of this. I kind of wish I didn't know about this. Maybe I'll have to have a look at that at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the most popular leftist Facebook page. You tolerate giant portraits of Stalin and Mao on May Day marches, and in 2017 you tolerated the flag of something called Syrian Social Nationalist Party being sported on May Day march in London, despite it looking fascist as fuck, even without any knowledge on Syria. I think I've looked at this and it does. Yeah. I don't know much about this, but you know, like, just looking at it, it's not totally a good look. To you, it's all a joke to put on a mug or on your other merch. Fuck you. Yeah, this person is absolutely right. Like, I feel like I was saying, you know, like, for them, for certain types of people, it's not like even, it's not even like a political interest. It's like, you know, like people who like an anime and like will talk about like the anime studio and like their favorite anime studio and all of like the content that they've produced and like how much they love them. It's like that, but, you know, an authoritarian genocidal regime, you know, like it's like an aesthetic. You, decades after the Eastern European version of communism collapsed and Russia turned into a turbo-capitalist authoritarian regime, are still claiming that the man in charge of it is some kind of anti-imperialist hero, despite him doing pretty much all he can to assure his stated aim of rebuilding the Russian Empire and beyond. Similarly, in your heads, NATO and other Western organisations are always on the wrong side and always perpetrators of everything bad in this world. You could, of course, Google it, but who would bother if you have such intellectual figures as Chomsky with his disgraceful relativising stances to tell you what to think? I mean, yeah, this is exactly it. Like, I admired Chomsky for such a long time. But over this, I just can't, you know, like, I just can't enable that. No. In the weeks coming to the Russian invasion, the Westerners contributed a fair few texts to Freedom, and in them they tried to push this narrative. I rejected them all as they were dishonest and frankly gaslighty. In response, one of you, someone I published before, got back to me asking, "Where have you been in the past 20 years?" And being Polish is no kind of response at all. Of course, in their mind, being British is enough to have strong opinions on the issues affecting other nations and other people's borders. As we know, it usually ends really well when British people do this, innit? Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's, you know, like, it's nothing really to do with us. We don't know the full circumstances. And it's really interesting that, you know, Western leftists are like, America and Britain, it's not all about you. Proceeds to make it all about us. Truly the British way. So let me tell you a few things about Eastern Europeans and NATO and Russia. We see NATO in a completely different, and I dare say much more nuanced way. We are not fans of it, and we can agree with you on many, many reasons to criticise it. But when you say fuck NATO or end NATO expansion, what I hear is that you do not care about the safety and well-being of my Eastern European friends, family and comrades. You are happy to put my mum at risk for cheap political points you would not even be able to act on. I mean, that is it, basically. You know, political points, brownie points, memes, aesthetic, over just the basic safety of real live Ukrainian people who just want an option that isn't death. It's just, yeah, it's just gross. When you talk about expansion, with everything this word implies, really you are referring to this process in which Eastern Europe, for the reason of other countries making decisions over our heads in 1945, quite literally tiptoed around Russia, petitioning it to allow us to do whatever we wanted to do. Eventually, this resulted in Russia signing something called the Founding Act on Mutual Relations, Cooperation, Security between NATO and the Russian Federation. This happened in May 1997, and Russia finally agreed to what you are now calling expansion, provided that certain conditions are met. These conditions effectively made us second-class members of NATO, but hey-ho, that is all we could get, and we went for it. Poland, Czech Republic and Hungary joined NATO in 1999, and the Baltic countries followed in 2004. And for now, I want them to stay there, and it doesn't have much to do with politics, to be honest. It is a self-preservation instinct. But this is another thing you will just not get. You talk more about NATO expansion than you talk about the fact that you are the funding members of it. I mean, again, this is a thing, like, for these people, it's not even about, like, which type of ideal society do you want? Do you want capitalism? Do you want socialism? Do you want whatever, whateverism? It's about basic survival. And sometimes you have to be flexible. You have to think on that level. You know, like, you have to put, like, even like your more nuanced sort of issues, like your criticisms aside, because you've got to do something in that instant, in that moment. And, I think Ukraine and a lot of Eastern European countries are in a position where they are in direct danger from Russia. And we can talk about, like, like stepping around Russia, treading on eggshells around Russia, which to an extent, like, you have to do that to stop World War III. But at the same time, like, acting like Ukraine, like, wanting a bit of, self-preservation, a bit of self-security in joining NATO as some kind of, like, like, evil act that they're committing, or that's endangering things. Like, at some point, I feel like, I kind of feel like we have to think about what Ukraine wants as well. Further, you talk about how you desire to stop NATO expansion, but you don't really mention what exactly would be a viable alternative to it. This is not acceptable at all. It just shows your privilege of growing up in a country where your life story was not littered with how exciting tantrums and aggressions of various scales of this great unpredictable force that assumes it can throw its way anywhere where there is no NATO. So tell me, how exactly will you assure our safety? What is this NATO alternative you are advocating for? Have you considered asking us what we think of it? Or did you just decide, as you did many times in your history, and to many other countries you felt superior towards, that it will be you and your leaders who will be setting the cards on the table, and we just need to submit? Did you already take out your ruler to make straight lines on the map, except that this time it will be the map of the place where I grew up? Again, like, leftists completely unaware, once again, of, certainly in the West, of, like, the actual, like, physical conditions of what people in Eastern Europe are going through. Like, you haven't lived in a communist country, like a former Soviet country. You haven't lived in this. You have no... you're like 15 different steps removed, and you think that your opinion is, like, the most important one. And this is beyond personal, it's political. What is most enraging is that the people doing the West-playing are absolutely the same ones that will cry over Trump over Twitter, but will not lift a finger to get his yilk out. Yes. Yes. Vote. You know, like, this is the same kind of thing. It's like the people who were like, oh yeah, Trump is evil, but like, I don't want to like go and vote because like Biden is bad as well. It's like sometimes like you have to put those principles aside just for like, you have to even put politics aside just for basic survival. Like, do you want trans people to be like eradicated out of existence with like the kind of things that Trump and his cronies were gonna put in? I mean, they're still doing it now, but like, you know, like things would have been worse had Trump was there. Had Trump still have been in power, and at some point you've kind of got to do something. You're not some soldiers, you are cowards. And when you're a coward, the only self-respect you may have is some moral virtue or superiority. It may get you followers, but it costs lives, it costs faith, it costs political disorientation, it reproduces docility. Anti-fascism is protecting people from individuals with structural power. Right now, that is Putin. If you are protecting his hegemony over his vast and increasing empire, if you are whatabouting into helplessness, you are part of the aggressor. To pick up a weapon or organise a fundraiser or welcome a refugee, but even more preferably at this point, shut the fuck up. Log out, touch grass, leave this war with people that actually know what they're fighting for. You're fighting for likes. It's humiliating to the left in general and to future generations who will be left demoralised rather than inspired to fight for a world sans dictators. Yes, your leaders are some of them, so take care of taking them down. Sadly, we seldom even trust the leaders you'd put in their place. This is the level of faith that you're losing. Look in the mirror, destroy the imperialist exceptionalist cop inside your head. Good luck. Or at the very least, learn how to pronounce our names properly. So, I've literally just read a section that says learn how to pronounce their names properly, and I'm going to try and read this person's name, and I'm going to probably do it terribly, so I'm probably not even going to attempt it. They're the Freedom they're the Freedom News editor, and they wrote this really good article. I think their name is Zosia Brom. I've probably butchered that terribly. However, this person is incredibly based. I think that's their Twitter handle there. This is an amazing article. Like, I read this and like it immediately resonated with me. Just for the simple fact that like it covers, like, as they say at the beginning of the article, like it covers so many things. Like, it's not just about Putin, you know? It's about a particular type of leftist. And it's about a particular type of leftist who values simping for Stalin over real people who are existing and suffering right now. And they've got their heads so far up their arses that I don't even think that they know what they're fighting for or what they're interested in. You know, like, to me, like, when I think of, like, you know, like, what are my political goals? What am I aiming for? You know, like, I might think of something like, I don't want there to be, you know, like, violent genocidal dictatorships anymore, and I want everyone to like have a roof over their heads and healthy food on their plates, you know, like something like that. I feel like for a lot of like Marxist Leninists and, you know, like these types, like not even Marxist Leninists, like some other communist socialists, like their entire idea just seems to be achieving socialism. Okay. You know, like we must have communism, or we must have, like, you know, like state communism in power. And it's like, yeah, but what do you actually want to achieve with that? Like, what if the person that is your leader in that is somebody who is dangerous? What about looking at communist regimes in the past and like the issues that have you know, like occurred with that? Like, do you want to like maybe address that so we can make sure that that doesn't happen again? No, we just say that wasn't real communism, you know, like. And like, I remember when I used to be like an anti-SJW, like I used to hear this a lot about the left, that we all just like say that wasn't real communism and then move on. But the thing is, like, there is some truth to that. There are a lot of leftists who just go, oh, that wasn't real leftism, we're not going to do that next time. And it's like, yeah, but how? Show me how you, what have you put in place, even in your own personal ideology, what have you put in place to show that that isn't going to happen again? Because I just don't see it. Yeah, I just don't see, you know, any kind of meaningful change from them at all, to be honest. So yeah, this article definitely spoke to me. So if you find this person on Twitter, definitely send them some support, because they seem 100% based, 100% very cool. And I would like to see more content like this, as opposed to what we're kind of getting at the moment from the left. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. So the next thing I was kind of like thinking of going on to was watching some bad Ukraine take videos. I have some lined up. So we'll kind of like look, you know, like a good take. This was kind of like a good take on Ukraine. And then I thought we'd, you know, like dumpster dive into the political take trash bin and have a look at some of the garbage takes. So like the time here is like 9 p.m. So I'm planning on like streaming for another hour, maybe like another hour and a half. Yeah, I tend not to do like longer live streams. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to be able to get like a lot of the other topics that I was aiming to talk about. So that might be a case of like having to do those topics next time. But at the very least, like I can try and get like 1 or 2 more topics in. So I think what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna like put this the stream on pause for like a couple of minutes to get myself a drink and put my laptop to charge, because the battery is nearly halfway dead and I don't want it to go kaput whilst I'm trashing on bad Ukraine takes. So I will be back in 2 minutes. Right, I'm back. Generally, I find it does help when you're doing a live stream if you remember to leave your laptop charger downstairs, because otherwise it means you have to run upstairs really quickly and try and find it. So if I wasn't such a professional live streamer, I probably would have done that, but you know, like, the reason that I was on pause was because I was doing incredibly professional things and definitely not running upstairs trying to find out where my laptop charger was. Yay! Professionalism. So I am back. So I think the next thing I kind of want to take a look at is some really awful takes that I found on Ukraine. And so I've heard for a while that Russell Brand, I don't know if you're familiar with who Russell Brand is in your sort of part of the world, but if you're not familiar with him, then consider yourself very, very lucky. I think he's like a comedian. He was a comedian at one point, but he's a British comedian. He's kind of seems to have gone into, like, I don't know, like weird conspiracy stuff. I was aware that he was very anti-vaccine, but apparently he's now also kind of like spreading a lot of like Ukraine misinformation. Like if you look, I've brought a particular, oh my god, I've brought a particular I'm just switching the screen so you can see what I'm talking that's the such a beautiful face. Yeah, that was the video I was going to show you, but like if you type in Russell Brand Ukraine, every like I don't know if you can see what I'm looking at, like everything that he makes about Ukraine is like, you've been lied to about why the Ukraine war began. So this is what they've been hiding. We're not allowed to discuss this. I've been warned not to talk about this. It's hard to believe this is happening. They don't want you looking into this. World War III, so this is why they want a Russia war. There's more to this. They want war and they're not Russian. Like the whole thing. Like again, I'm aware that I'm not actually watching those videos. I'm watching this one. But you know, like on the whole, it's pretty obvious, like the narrative that he's kind of selling there is kind of this very much there is another side to the story. There is a second side. And like we were kind of seeing in the Freedom Press article, this type of, there are two sides to every story, including when Putin, the dictator of an aggressively authoritarian country, invades a much smaller country that, you know, like has not been involved in a conflict. You know, like at some point there are not two sides to every story. I mean, like, yeah, there's some complexity, but just to the point where it's ridiculous and it just becomes very victim blaming. So I'm not gonna watch like the whole of this video, partially because of like, you know, like like it's about 20 minutes long. Like I don't want to watch like the whole thing because there's some other topics that I kind of want to cover, but also because this is Russell Brand, and I think if I watched like the whole thing, I think I'll probably like die. I don't know, like spontaneously combust. I just find him very, very grating. I found him very annoying when he was a comedian, and I find him even more grating now that he's a conspiracy theorist. So we're gonna watch this now, and I'm gonna try not to cringe too much. So let's give this a go.
There are no biolabs in Ukraine. That's a conspiracy theory. There's biological research facilities, but that's completely different. Hello there, you
Okay, first thing. Why is there like a farting crow, or is there some sort of joke that I'm not getting? He has this on all of his videos. It's like a farting... What bird? What? I don't really know what he's going for there. If somebody knows what there's like some deep poetic meaning behind this, please do let me know.
Hello there, you 5.2 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining us on this glorious caravan to truth. Yes, there's complication on the way. Yes, there's personal and collective pain. But awakening ain't easy, not individually and certainly not as a society. Today we're talking about Ukraine and the ongoing
He kind of can you hear me? Sorry, I've just like put it off of mute. My mic on. Yeah, it's on. Yeah, he presents such a beautiful face. He puts everything in this very like, you are awakening, you are learning, you are waking up to what is going on. Like, I think there's something that's very appealing about that to a certain type of person, like this kind of vibe that, you know, like you've been lied to like your entire life, but you know, like you're coming out of the brainwashing kind of thing. I think there's like a type of person that is very appealing to.
Conjecture that there are bio-research facilities there. We read your comments, as you know. Many of you are like, talk about the biolabs, Russ, talk about the biolabs. Well, there's no confirmation that there are biolabs, but there are biological research facilities, which is entirely different and probably just a place where they'd like work on toothpaste and shampoo and other stuff that's vital that the Russians don't get their hands on. Before we get into the video, I want to tell you, you can see me live in the UK in places like Carlisle, Plymouth, Glasgow, Bristol, Blackpool. This is all in the next few weeks. There's a link in the description if you want to come and see me live.
No, I really don't, Russell. I'm sorry.
Be part of this. But without further ado, let's get into some news. This is from Glenn Greenwald, who you may remember broke the Edward Snowden story and therefore should be...
Glenn Greenwald, like, isn't he, hasn't he gone like right wing or something? Why had it gone onto my ending screen? I have no idea what it was doing. Should be on screen capture. Yeah. I have little to no idea. The thing with Glenn Greenwald, he kind of seems to be one of those figures who does support like the horseshoe theory, that he you know, like he's very left wing, but then like he also has like a bunch of right wing views. Probably need to look into this more.
Condemned to some kind of gulag as a right wing fascist. Self-anointed fact-checkers in the US corporate press have spent 2 weeks mocking as disinformation and a false conspiracy theory the claim that Ukraine has biological weapons labs either alone or with US support. They never presented any evidence for their ruling. Me, you know, I've seen those stories and I've seen your comments below. Russell, talk about the biolabs. And I'm like, steady you lot, steady. You'll get us into trouble, biolabs. That's the last thing we need. We're just getting over the last wave of censorship. You know, now we're...
Oh my God. I'm going to talk about this in more detail because I have got like evidence of him pushing conspiracy theories here. He's very good at like hyping up his audience. Like he's very good at like saying like, oh, you've been asking for me to talk about this, but it's a bit dangerous because we could get censored because, it's stuff they don't want you to know about, Yeah, I kind of feel like he's very good at, like, I don't know, maybe it's because he's, like, had acting training, I don't know, like, he's pretty good at, like, playing to his audience.
Moving into a new wave. Well, now there is some evidence from high-ranking officials. A senior diplomat has said there are research facilities that are biological. Once again, we're into that land of semantics we find ourselves in.
Yeah, but Russell, if there is a genuine difference between those two things, it's not a semantic issue. Like, words do have meaning, as we will see shortly.
Function? What do you mean gain a function? Oh yeah, no, they gain some functions. Now we're into this again with this stuff. Let's get into it. Unfortunately for this propaganda racket masquerading as neutral and high-minded fact-checking, the neocon official, long in charge of US policy in Ukraine, testified on Monday before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and strongly suggested that such claims are at least in part true. This complex situation in Ukraine. Here's what's not complex. Putin's illegal invasion is horrific. Ukrainian people are worthy of support. Any support that could be offered that doesn't escalate the situation and make it worse, I suppose. Would you agree with that? Comments below. But this is merely...
But, I mean, I feel like, again, he's very careful. He's like, yeah, I'm spreading this information that Ukraine has got, some weapons lab or whatever, but like, obviously, Ukrainian people are in deserving of support, and I'm sure that you'd all agree. A comment in the comments section, like, Russell, you know what your audience actually thinks. Like, I feel like he's covering his back a bit with this.
An acknowledgement that something with this amount of historical depth, with this number of interests at play, has layers of complexity that are worthy of unpacking. And remember, explaining is not condoning. By explaining something, you're not condoning it. You're trying to understand it, trying to get a better perspective. Yes?
No, I mean, this is the exact argument that I used to hear all the time, like, from... like, from right-wing, like, type, like, centrists and right-wing type figures, like, they'd always be saying, we're not saying, this conspiracy theory, or we're not saying that, that Muslims are incredibly dangerous, and that they're trying to eradicate the West. We're just, like, telling you details of, like, hundreds and hundreds of, like, negative stories about Muslims, whilst covering over the details of loads and loads of positive stories about Muslims. We're just showing you all the negative stuff that we can find that happens to be somewhat loosely related to a person who happens to be Muslim. But we're just showing you that information. We're not attempting to present a narrative of some form. There's no subliminal message we're going for. If you happen to, like, develop a hatred of Muslims because of my content, that's totally on you. I'm just giving you the information and you're developing your own opinions. It just happens that the information that I provide you with is all of one very specific type of opinion. That's just like a huge coincidence. So I really don't feel that what Russell says there washes at all. It just doesn't work. You can't present highly charged, like, conspiratorial information about a country that is being invaded, and then go, oh, but it's just that we're just unpacking it, we're just, like, explaining it. I mean, like, this has a bias to it. You know, like this is not coming from an unbiased perspective, a neutral perspective in any way, shape, or form. You know, I feel like he's very good at like making himself feel like or presenting himself like the neutral party. But that's just not the case.
Yesterday afternoon, Under-Secretary of State Victoria Nuland appeared before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Marco Rubio, hoping to debunk growing claims that there are chemical weapons labs in Ukraine, asked Nuland, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons? Rubio undoubtedly expected a flat denial by Nuland, thus providing further proof that such speculation is dastardly fake news emanating from the Kremlin, the CCP and QAnon. Instead, Nuland did something completely uncharacteristic for her. For neocons, and for senior US foreign policy officials, for some reason, she told a version of the truth. Her answer visibly stunned Rubio, who as soon as he realised the damage she was doing to the US messaging campaign by telling the truth, interrupted her and demanded that she instead affirm that if a biological attack were to occur, everyone should be 100% sure that it was Russia who did it. Grateful for the life raft, Nuland told Rubio he was right. Now we can have a look at that with our own little eyes and with our own little minds. Assess who are you going to believe, the government or your own lying eyes, the mainstream media or your own ability to look at stuff and decide for yourself. Gotta be.
I mean, again, there's another example of like kind of like anti-media, like anti-intellectualism. Like, you know, who are you going to allow? Who are you going to rely on, like your own eyes or the media? It's like, yeah, but sometimes you can see something and like not know the full circumstances behind it. Like we know that the media does put a certain spin on things. They do put, in a lot of cases, like for example in the UK and like transphobia, like yeah, they do put, you know, they certainly do put their own spin on things in certain occasions. But at the same time, like there are certain situations in which you do not know the full circumstances, in which you cannot you know, be privy to the full you know, expertise and information from certain types of people. And I think there's kind of like a fine line between like you know, questioning certain narratives and the whole doing my own research movement. You know, like there's a difference between going on Facebook and listening to what some people, you know, have said and, you know, like making your own interpretations, and like what somebody who has been involved in a conflict for a very long time is aware of. So yeah, I just find that another kind of like, it's kind of a manipulation technique.
For the old government and media, hasn't it? I mean, they never let us down before.
I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
And this is where you say no, and we can carry on with our presumed narrative.
Ukraine has biological research facilities.
Oh, no, that's not good.
Which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of.
What? No.
Oh God, he's so annoying. Is it
So
just
we
me?
are working with the Ukrainians.
Pretty sure it's not Ukrainians.
The Ukrainians.
If you are an Undersecretary for State Affairs, do learn the name of Ukrainians.
On how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
So, like, you know, Russia presumably have got their own scientists, their own laboratories, their own narrative, their own agenda, their own perspective on this situation. Clearly, all this is true. So whatever it is that's in that biological research facility, it warrants some concern. They ain't just in there knocking up nail varnish and conditioner. This conditioner, though, actually you don't even have to wash it out. Shampoo, take 2 bottles in the shower.
God, there's only so much of this that I can watch. I think I probably should like have read the analysis beforehand. Yeah.
Off your fucking nut. Take 1 bottle in there.
Oh my God.
Don't let Putin get his hands on that. We want him in the shower for as long as possible. Oh no, I must apply the conditioner. This will take ages. How on earth will I annex Georgia?
I'm sure you're
Once a comedian. I mean, he literally used to be a comedian, apparently. Oh my God.
aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country and with NATO's coordination.
That's like if something's gone wrong at a dinner party. Would you mind now if we don't talk about this till we get home, dear? Couldn't it possibly be that the Russians are just straightforward?
All kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons.
Ball in there! Don't let Putin get his hands on that! We want him in the shower for as long as possible. Oh no, I must apply the conditioner. This will take ages. How on earth will I annex Georgia?
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country and with NATO's coordination.
That's like if something's gone wrong at a dinner party. Would you mind now if we don't talk about this till we get home, dear? Couldn't it possibly be that the Russians are just straightforward baddies and there's no complexity to this and we haven't been dabbling in matters in Ukraine that are potentially problematic? Let's not mention that Hunter Biden can't go 10 minutes without getting paid 50 grand by a Ukrainian energy company. We'll talk about this in the car.
If there's
He has no idea what he's talking about. I mean, like, that didn't even sound like that. It just sounded like he was clarifying it. I feel like he's kind of gone off the deep end. I don't know if there's
a
any more of
biological or
this that I need
chemical
to
weapon
watch.
incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
He's even at that point sort of doing nods, isn't he? Like, with any doubt, it wouldn't be anyone else. Would it be the Russians? They're bad, ain't they? Russians, basically.
Is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
Did you see that
I mean, I
film?
don't really think that, again, I don't really see... I feel like he's kind of sculpting the narrative a little bit again there. I feel like there's only so much of this that I can watch before I kind of lose my mind. So I kind of want to look through, now that we've kind of seen what he's going through. So like, I feel like Russell is... I feel like what he's kind of arguing is that this biolab is actually like a bioweapons lab, and there's like a reason for Russia to be intimidated by it, and that that Ukraine is involved in some kind of like mass weapons thing with NATO, and that's why Russia wants to be involved, and that there's also some sort of conspiracy theory with like the US representatives, like they're all trying to kind of in some way cover everything up, and like they all look anxious. I mean, I'm not really seeing that, but I've been reading this article here. Double check, is Russell Brand pushing the Ukraine biolab narrative, by Francesca Scott. The comedian and social commentator Russell Brand recently weighed in on claims made by the Russian government regarding biolabs in Ukraine. On March 6th, the Russian government's Twitter account alleged that during Putin's invasion of Ukraine, evidence of an emergency cleanup operation aimed at eradicating traces of the military biological program was found in various research facilities in the country. Along with Brand, right-wing commentators like Fox News' Tucker Carlson have repeated the claims, and many conspiracy communities, including QAnon, have latched on to the idea. The misinformation narrative is conveniently lined up with origin myths of COVID-19, while also providing the Kremlin with additional detail to justify Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Like, there is so much of this. I'm just taking off, removing the cat ears. They are starting to kind of hurt my head a little bit. Let's hope I don't lose my powers with the removal of the cat ears. I kind of feel like there's a lot that I wasn't aware of, like the misinformation, like connecting with like COVID-19. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I kind of like, more stuff I kind of want to understand with this. So this will be interesting. Brand's appeal stems from his relatability and entertainment value. I mean, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, he's very good at this. He's very good at presenting himself in a way that seems like, you know, like maybe he does, like maybe he genuinely like believes in this stuff. Like maybe he maybe this stuff is like really super important to him as well, but like he's very good at coming across as very genuine. He's very genuinely like interested in the topic. And he kind of makes you feel like you're stumbling upon something, you know, sinister that's been hidden from view, and like you're not listening to the mainstream media anymore. He's kind of got that kind of Alex Jones kind of vibe. Like there's this, he is very entertaining to watch, even though he's pretty embarrassing, in my opinion. He's bolshy, brash, with a vast vocabulary and an Essex accent. He offers his fans a sense of authenticity, not dissimilar to Joe Rogan or Nigel Farage, but with his own distinct persona, from his chaotic on-scene career that cemented his lovable row reputation. I mean, again, this is kind of it, like, he comes across as, like, he couldn't be lying. Like, he's so genuine. He's like that guy that you know, who has all of these, like, in-depth conspiracy theories, but, like, maybe they all turn out to, like, be true. You know, like how could he possibly be deceiving people? To his deep involvement in wellness and spirituality, has followed the unfortunate but well-trodden path into the dubious regurgitation of misinformation couched as truth. He offers his audience a window into the world of his own brand of forbidden knowledge, straight out of the conspiracy theory ABC. That's just a bit about like his history. I don't think that's like. This could be useful. Using the idea that governments and institutions are the gatekeepers of secret information, Brand further exploits this space, filling it with a range of blurry assertions. These include the narratives about the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, anti-vaccine narratives, the Canadian-US truckers convoy. Yeah, he's really in support of that as well. And Justin Trudeau, along with a host of other common misinformation talking points. The millions of people who feel disillusioned with the current political landscape and its leaders, perhaps those who may have followed Brand's no voting stance in 2014, yeah, this is another one, are tempted by an alternative source of hidden truth full of holes and backed up by dodgy source material. The Conspiracy Pipeline. In a post on March 11, Brand offers the disclaimer that explaining is not condoning. By explaining something, you are not condoning it. You are trying to understand it, trying to get a better perspective. This is exactly what I was commenting on. Like, again, like, I mean, by explaining something, you're not condoning it. That's a very leading statement. No, when you explain something, that doesn't mean you're condoning it. But the types of information that you choose to focus on, and the types of information that you choose to exclude, do suggest whether or not you're condoning something. Like, and it's also, this is very misleading, explaining. Well, what he's doing again is not really explaining anything. He's not explaining, he's not sat down like, here's the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Here are all the facts we know. He's not explaining something. He's presenting very leading interpretations of what's happening. As far as what I've seen, I don't know what the rest of the video is like. I will probably go back and have a look at it after I've read this. But as far as what I've seen, he's not explaining anything. He's trying to, I think, condone what he's doing by presenting it as kind of factual. But yeah, there's a lot more narrative going on behind what he's doing than just simply explaining something. He then references an article by journalist Glenn Greenwald. Greenwald's trajectory has been remarkable. Known for his reporting on US mass surveillance programs, the Operation Car Wash scandal in Brazil, quitting the news organization he helped to found due to claims he was being censored, and then in the last few years taking a sharp and measurable turn right. I thought he had. Does this say anything about it? Glenn Greenwald's conservative shift. He's become a loyal partisan for Fox News. The graphs showing Greenwald's praise of the largest and most powerful cable news channel in the US. I mean, there it is, the largest and most powerful cable channel in the US. And Russell Brand is kind of presenting him as if he's this really like underground source who's like breaking the truth. It's like he is the establishment, basically. And how those posts increase in direct relation to his appearances on the network have made visually clear what most of us already knew. The nominally independent journalist has become a Fox News partisan. Data shows Glenn Greenwald's shift to the right. Yeah, I had heard about this. Probably watch that maybe in another stream. Greenwald employs footage from a US Senate Foreign Relations Committee meeting in which Undersecretary of State Victoria Nuland responds to questions from senators. Greenwald's commentary of the footage supports the conspiracy theory motif of hidden knowledge, claiming that Nuland accidentally admits to the presence of US-funded biolabs in Ukraine. The New York Times commented the State Department said Ms. Nuland was referring to Ukrainian diagnostic and biodefense laboratories during her testimony, which are different from biological weapons facilities. Neither Greenwald nor Brand found this convincing and instead weaponized that explanation to fuel a false narrative. And again, this is why I disagree with his statement about explaining something. Like, he's not explaining, he's interpreting. And he's using that to formulate a narrative. So she's referring to Ukraine diagnostic and biodefense laboratories, different from biological weapons facilities. The term biolab is in itself a misnomer. In the context of Russia's claims, it is supposed to mean a place in which biological weapons are engineered. In reality, US-funded biological research facilities can be found not only in Ukraine, but across Europe and the Caucasus, did I pronounce that right? Working to counter potential diseases and outbreaks. So, biological research facilities can be found in educational institutions around the world and are in no way secretive, mysterious, or hidden. I mean, there it is. You know, like, I think he's like relying on the fact that the term biolab sounds kind of terrifying. But like, there's a clear difference between, like, you know, diagnosing, counteracting a biological outbreak and like actively creating biological weapons. These are two very, very different things. And associating Ukraine with these, I think is very, very dangerous. And again, I think it comes back into like what was being discussed in like the leftist West-splaining article. You know, it's about creating a both sides narrative. You know, like as Brand kind of says, it's nuanced. You know, heaven forbid, you know, bad. You know, like, oh, you know, it's not just that Putin's bad. It's you know, there's two sides to every story. In the 90s, the US started its biological threat reduction program with partner countries as a way to counter the threat of outbreaks. The US Department of Defense states all member countries of the World Health Organization must have capabilities to detect and respond to disease threats. The whole thing to me sounds like Russia just wants to like say, oh, we were just so spooked. We were really spooked by these bio labs. Like, we were super spooked by these defense laboratories. And so we just had to, you know, go and invade Ukraine and commit genocide because like we were just so spooked. I just feel like it's another excuse. According to the Department of Defense, these research laboratories receive some technical support and funding from the US and are under Ukrainian management. I mean, like, yeah, like I get, like, I don't want the US to have control in all of these, like, these different countries, and I don't want the US to, you know, it bothers me that US has this level of power. But on the other hand, you know, that is at the moment the world that we live in. And I don't think that we can blame Ukraine for wanting to have some level of protection. and to, like to have a connection with US. I mean, these biolabs aren't even for weaponry. They're literally just for diagnosing and responding to outbreaks. But I think, like, in terms of NATO, like, like, I can understand why Ukraine does want some kind of connection to the US, because the US can protect them. Now, whether or not the US is a trustworthy country is another matter entirely. But I just think on, like, a basic level, I don't think there's anything wrong on Eastern European countries' sort of side in wanting some basic help from a world power. In some circumstances, they are used to stabilize various biological threats created under the USSR's illegal biological weapons program. Essentially, these labs are there to secure and prevent biological risks and ensure Ukraine can detect and report outbreaks caused by dangerous pathogens before they pose security or stability threats. There is no evidence that biological weapons are being produced on these sites. I mean, this whole conspiracy gives me the same vibes of, like, they had mass weapons. Like, I feel like it's like there's this whole double standard of, like, oh, it's okay if we claim that there's, like, mass chemical weapons. It's okay if when we do it, like, if, like, the British government does it, like, in terms of, like, Iraq, that's bad. But, like, if we make up, like, if we foster this narrative that there's this dangerous biological weapons program in Ukraine, like, it's different when we do it. The manipulation of Newland's words by both Greenwald and Brand has provided them with a convenient sub-narrative that, unwittingly or not, justifies Putin's war crimes. Leftist West-splaining strikes again. In the same Senate hearing, Newland goes on to speak of concerns regarding Russian troops gaining control of these research laboratories and presumably whatever they claim is inside them, stating that US security forces are acting to prevent such a situation. The US government has made no secret of its fears of a textbook false flag scenario in which Russia throws out accusations of biological warfare threats from Ukraine as a pretext for committing its own atrocities. It wouldn't be the first time. Oh, gee whiz, would love to read about this. No, I don't want to describe. Describe? Subscribe. That sounds a really interesting article. I will probably come back to that at some point. We can track the propagation of the Biolabs conspiracy from its inception. A single post from a refurbished QAnon account on the far-right social media network Gab, such a trustworthy source. Journalists Ben Collins and Kevin Collier reported on the growth of this narrative, tracking its growing potency over the 10 days before the invasion of Ukraine. By the first day of the invasion, the idea had bloomed, and similar posts were all over social media. A serve from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, followed by volleys from Tucker Carlson and Greenwald, and this misinformation lands precisely where intended. Brand's claims of explaining from another perspective are essentially hot takes on another writer's work aimed at whipping his followers into a frenzy. Advancing explanations and overthrowing American imperialism is at the heart of who Russell Brand is. Brand invites his audience to make assessments with our own little eyes and our own little minds, and the do your own research tactic is well documented in its pitfalls relating to science and medicine. Researching such topics often fuels misconceptions when conducted without a methodology, without proper context, and without using reliable vetted sources. Brand's chosen road leads his audience to a shadowy doorway to conspiracy theories, misinformation, and Russian propaganda. Brand says he's explaining, not condoning, but he's boosting a lie and dodging responsibility for doing so. Yes, dodging responsibility. I mean, that is it. I mean, having been like a former like anti-SJW, I remember this so much. Like the people, like the centrists who would like platform Nazis, like platform literal Nazis, and just be like, well, you know, I'm just, you know, we just want to hear what they have to say, you know, like, yeah, I don't ever have any like leftists or socialists or trans progressives on my channel, but like I'm just putting those opinions out there. Like I'm not condoning the Nazis. I've just like, you know, I just wanted to have them on. I just believe in like having like a varied discourse, you know, like that kind of thing. Like that was happening a lot. ContraPoints actually has had a really good video on this. She's taken it down, but you can read the script on her website. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's something like Debating the Right or Debating Nazis. And it's just, she presents it just so absolutely perfectly. Like I think it's like a Dave Rubin style like debate talk show, and like one of the guests is like a literal Nazi in like not full on Nazi gear, and the other guest is like an ordinary Jewish person, and in the middle is this centrist like talk show host, and the entire show is just the centrist talk show host gaslighting the Jewish person for being frightened of what the Nazi is saying and what the Nazi is aiming to do, and just saying, oh, you know, like, you know, yeah, they're a Nazi, but you know, they mean well, you know, like everything he says seems very reasonable. And I feel like it's that same like lack of responsibility that I'm seeing in what Russell Brand is doing, that like happy-go-lucky, it's not going to affect me kind of mentality. I literally cannot tell if he knows what he's doing. Like, does he know that he's being like really disingenuous with this? Like, does he genuinely believe he's explaining, not condoning? Is this a grift for him? Like, I wonder how much he's actually making from this. Or does he genuinely believe it, or is it like a bit of both? That's the end of that article. That was also a really, really good article. Yeah. I just kind of feel like, again, you know, it's just incredibly disappointing to see this type of person becoming very, very popular again. I've heard a lot of people talking about like possibly like a resurgence of like the anti-SGW kind of stuff. And it, you know, like it does seem like a definite, you know, possibility. Like when I see people like this who like, I think Russell Brand would have been like popular had he been like, I think he was doing YouTube stuff you know, around the Trump era, but like if he'd been doing this kind of thing back then, I think he would have been popular. And I think, you know, I just think it's very troubling that this kind of just like anti-intellectualism, basic research. Well, it is basic research, but it's very, very basic research, if you know what I mean. That this kind of thing is kind of being supported again. Yeah, it's just very, very disappointing. I don't know what he goes on to say, whether he says anything else that's particularly interesting.
On Rocky 4, who did you like best? Rocky?
Yeah, I don't even know why I expected there to be anything particularly...
The guy, Dolph Lundgren, the best.
What is he talking
There is
about?
no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic
Baffling.
Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
Oh, unlike you lot, you lovely bunch of darlings. Please remember that even though this is a serious subject, we are permitted to apply a humorous lens to expose the ridiculousness and absurdity of the discourse that surrounds it. I'm certainly not making light of the tragic plight of people directly affected by war. We honour them with truth. Newlands...
Oh my god! Oh my god! We honour them with truth? You're literally spreading Russian propaganda, and you have the audacity to say that, like, you're not making light of what Ukrainians are going through. Like, oh my God, imagine being that tone deaf. I mean, his humor, like, yeah, I believe in like putting some humor into like political commentary, but like, to me, this isn't even like, he's not even making a comment. He's just like, she says something and like he makes sort of fun of it, and like that's it. I mean, it's just, yeah, no.
Bizarre admission that Ukraine has biological research facilities that are dangerous enough to warrant concern that they could fall into Russian hands, ironically constituted more decisive evidence of the existence of such programs in Ukraine than what was offered in 2002 and 2003 to corroborate US allegations about Saddam's chemical and biological programs in Iraq. Wow.
They're both shit. I mean, there's no evidence with either of them. I mean, it's literally pretty much the same thing. There is no evidence with either of them.
Oh, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? That in itself is a more cohesive and reliable piece of evidence, given that it comes from a high-ranking diplomat, than what mobilized action in Iraq. That's heavy.
I mean, two wrongs don't make a right. Like, they're both bad. You know, like, Iraq was not good. This is not good also. Like, we should learn a lesson from what happened.
It should go without saying that the existence of a Ukrainian biological research program does not justify an invasion by Russia. Right, but it has been said. It has been said. No one's doing that. So, look, let me know in the comments below if you think we're handling this sensitively enough. If we
my God, like he's so he's deflecting responsibility. Like whenever it's like a really controversial issue, he's like, let me know in the comments. Do you think that I am spreading Russian propaganda? You know, like, you're all my followers and you all support me and you all have the same sort of opinions that I do, but just let me know in the comments if you think I'm handling this sensitively or not.
Across to you that we're not making light of the horror that's being experienced by Ukrainian people. Our sympathy could not be stronger. Neither are we neglecting to condemn Putin and the actions of Russia.
Putin. Like, I don't want to make fun of his accent or anything, but I really love the way he says Putin. Putin. Amazing.
We are simply trying to understand what's happening and resisting the simplifying propagandist narratives that we're offered elsewhere. Oh, those people are bad. It must be happening because they're bad people. Oh, that's really helpful. Sue.
I mean, I don't really think that that's being said. I think what he's saying there is really reductive. I mean, for one thing, like, he puts on like the thick American accent, like, kind of seems to me like, based on what that article was saying, that Russell is actually far more aligned here with Tucker Carlson and Glenn Greenwald and the US and QAnon, like the US right wing, than like you know, like the American right wing, than anything else. So I don't really think that it's those types of people, like with like the thick American twang, who have like the anti-Russian views. Like, I feel like it's more akin to what he's saying, although even that is kind of like I don't know, it's kind of a classist stereotype in and of itself. You know, like, I think he's actually far more I don't think he even understands like what the argument is. Like, I've not seen anybody go, Russia deserves, you know, like, to be criticized for how it's handled Ukraine because they're bad people. I mean, I've seen some of the stuff, like, there is some stuff that's stupid, like the whole, like, I think like they banned, like, was it like a dog show or like a cat show? Like, they banned Russian breeds. I thought that was really ridiculous. Like, stuff like that. And I do see that, like, some people will take it to the other extreme and be like, Russian people are bad, like Russian individuals are bad, and like they'll, you know, like this happened in the Second World War. Like, people would see like a German business and like trash it because like they're dumb and they don't understand that like a country can have like a government and have like a a social system that's like prejudiced, but like that doesn't mean that like specific individuals are bad. You know, and I do kind of see that happening sometimes, like with Russia, but on the whole, like that is like a tiny minority. The main narrative here, the main argument is not Russia bad. Russians are bad people. They deserve our criticism. It's literally what Russia's doing is evil because they are invading a much smaller country that has not done anything to them. And they are trying to, like America does, be imperial and, you know, like widen the Russian Empire. You know, that's why people are criticizing Russia, which I think is quite a nuanced take. You know, like I feel like a lot of conspiracy theories, they are so convinced that everything has to be like this in-depth, nuanced, both sides thing. And like, yeah, it is good to look at the wider picture. But as the leftist Westsplaining argument kind of explained earlier, like sometimes you like when there is this serious a conflict going on, like sometimes you just gotta act. Like you've just gotta do something. And maybe it's not going to be like the perfect socialist ideal, but at least it maybe helps Ukrainians like not get obliterated. Might be a good idea.
Resolved. With our platitudinous idiocy, we're sure to reach a solution any day now, let alone an attack as comprehensive and devastating as the one unfolding. No more than the existence of a similar biological program under Saddam would have rendered the 2003 US invasion of Iraq justifiable.
And the rest of this
but
is just
Newland's Ukraine policy for the US for years, having gone from Dick Cheney to Hillary Clinton and Obama, and now to
He's
Biden,
literally just reading the
underscores
article.
how
Like,
little the...
At least like when I read an article, like I analyze it and I'll like give my own opinion. Like his is just, he is saying something that is interesting. It really makes you think.
There is in Washington on such questions. It is Newland's extensive experience in wielding power in Washington that makes her confession yesterday so
It wasn't even a confession. I feel like Glenn and Russell are like those, you know, like people who like stan like a TV series to the point where they're like reading so much into like the characters' expressions and like over-analyzing everything, like in the hopes that there's maybe some deeper meaning there.
startling. It is the sort of thing people like her lie about and conceal, not admit. But now that she did admit it, it is crucial that this revelation not be buried and forgotten. And that will be the temptation, to see this as another complex, nuanced aspect of this evolving situation and to put it to one side and focus on what is tangible and observable. Putin bad, Russia's actions bad. True, not disputing that.
But then why do you keep saying it? Like, you're doing it in that mocking sort of way of like, oh yeah, people are saying Putin bad, Putin bad. Oh, but that's true though. And it's like, you know, every statement he says that involves conspiracy theory logic, he takes steps to like remove himself from it. Like, he'll make an inflammatory statement and then say, oh, but you know, we feel really bad for Ukraine though. We're not saying anything bad about Ukraine though. Leave us a like and a comment and subscribe, like, if we're not doing anything bad about Ukraine, and like let us know in the comments, because that's your responsibility and totally not mine. LOL.
Disputing it, but by amplifying it and extracting mitigating circumstance, that affects even the possibility of a solution being reached, doesn't it? Because a solution often involves compromise. Why should we compromise? They're the bad ones. Well, what about all of this? So there is a little bit of room for compromise. There is a little bit of room if the objective is only the preservation and security of Ukrainian people, of living.
I feel like Russell seems to think if he makes enough expressive hand gestures, that will just convince everybody. You know, like, I feel like there's some truth to that. Like, the more, like, confident you come across in, like, your expressions, the way that you put things across, like, it is much more easier to kind of, like, convince people. And again, I feel like, once again, he's kind of trying to distance himself. Like, he's spreading Putin propaganda. And then he's saying, yeah, but we just want resolution for the Ukrainian people. Yes, it means they will live their lives in terror of Russia and a Russian invasion and being controlled by Russia. But, you know, like, we're just doing it for them. You know, like, he's so compassionate.
Limiting the damage and suffering that they undergo. As long as there's no one that would benefit, say, from this being a prolonged conflict, like, I don't know, what, off the top of my head, weapons manufacturers, for example, let's just stick with Russia bad, Putin bad. Two things that we can be sure of. And
I want to make something very clear. Like, I do support, like, de-escalating the conflict. I do not want a war. I do not support, like, opening the skies or whatever. Like, I don't support that. I just think at the same time, like, you know, like, you have to, sometimes you have to take a firm stance, and sometimes that means, yes, there is nuance, but for the sake of people's basic safety, like, you have to focus on, like, the core truth of it, which is that Ukraine is in danger from a global power.
Forget the complexity of geopolitics. Let's let mummy and daddy deal with it. Fingers crossed, eh? That's just what I think. You let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you want to see this discussed? Do you trust the mainstream media? Do you think a fact like this is significant? And if this is what we know, imagine what we don't.
I mean, everything he says here, like, a fact like this, like, what was... Like, everything is just so, like...
That's just what I think. You let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you want to see this discussed? Do you trust the mainstream media? Do you think a fact like this is significant? And if this is what we know, imagine what we don't know. If you want to come and...
If this is what we know, imagine what we don't know. Like, everything is about, like, imply. You know, like, he has no evidence, so imply. You know... I feel like I'm turning into, like, Russell Brand is a conspiracy theorist. Like, I'm turning into the conspiracy theorist of conspiracy theorists. Like, what is he trying to do with his audience? I find it really interesting. I don't know whether he's doing it on purpose as a grifter, or whether it's just, like, genuinely how he views it. It just comes across to me like he's trying to shirk blame and responsibility onto his viewers. And secondly, he's trying to present the idea that he's not presenting a narrative in any way, shape or form. Like, these are just his views on the matter, and he's just, like, informing everybody, like, you know, like, he's just explaining things, and, you know, like, there's no ulterior motive behind any of that. Yeah, so I think that is enough of Russell for one day. I feel like I've seen enough of him to, like, last me a lifetime. Yeah. So I think what I kind of want to do now, I had another Ukrainian video, another, like, conspiracy theory, this time from somebody a bit more right-wing. So we could either watch that, or I'm kind of thinking maybe like, focus on that this time, and then, like, have the next video be about a different topic. So I think I did intend to do like I had a whole bunch of topics planned for this, like 5 or 6 different topics, and I think it was just, like, way too much content for, like, one entire sitting. Because I tend to like to try and do, like, shorter streams, because it's just, like, I find streams are, like, it's like a lot of intense, like, talking and, like, content, like, all the time. So, like, I think it's you know, like, I tend to like to just do, like, a short stream, like a couple of hours. So I think I'm gonna use this one as kind of like a stream to, like, focus on, like, the Ukraine content, and then, like, maybe do another one for the other topics that I kind of mentioned that I kind of wanted to cover, because I feel like those are really important too. But I feel like if I cover them now, like, I'm not going to be I feel like I'm not going to have enough time to, like, really go into depth about it, and I kind of do want to give those topics justice, because, like, one of them is, like, I kind of want to talk about, like, the state of trans rights in the UK and in the US, and like all the stuff that makes me really, really angry about that. And the other thing I kind of wanted to talk about is workers' rights. So I think I might like do one where I talk about like the workers' rights issues, and then like do one where I talk about the trans rights issues, and like kind of handle it in that way. So I'm gonna just pause a minute and just like get myself another drink, and then we'll kind of go on to the next part. So I'll see you in like 5 minutes. Okay, I'm back. Just checking that my sound is back on. Yes. Yes, and the cat ears are back. I feel very powerful and intellectual with these cat ears on. I feel like these cat ears, they really add something to the discourse. I feel like they give me my powers. So I'm back with my cat ears. I'm back with my cat mug. Yay! Yeah. Yeah. So cool. So cool. I think I'm kind of gonna start to like wind things down now. So I'm gonna like watch one more video on the topic of Ukraine by a very influential and important source known as Paul Joseph Watson. I never really watched, like, even when I was like an anti-SJW, like I didn't really like his content. I didn't really get the appeal. So we're gonna see what he has to. We've heard from somebody who's kind of like all over the. I mean, I don't even really know what to call Russell Brand politically. Like he's kind of like very horseshoe. Like he's kind of left wing on some issues, kind of right wing on others. So I'm not really exactly sure how to define his views. But yeah, Paul Joseph Watson, I believe, is quite far right. So I think it'd be interesting to see like to what extent they overlap, and to cover that. I think in future videos, like I will be covering like more varied topics. I hadn't realized like how long these topics would kind of like take me to cover. So I think probably future videos will maybe be like a bit more varied. But it has also been kind of nice to talk, like really focus on like one topic as well. Because like I think a lot of other like live streamers will like do loads of different topics. So like maybe let me know like in the comments or on Twitter, like what kind of thing do you prefer? Like do you prefer like lots of different topics, or like just like one topic? I feel like I'm becoming like Russell Brand. I'm like, you take the responsibility away from me. Like you decide what I do. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitter as Millie Cusack. So like MILLI and then Cusack. Like in my my little overlay. You can see here. So and I'm also on Instagram. Can't remember whether I changed my Instagram handle because of professionalism. Basically, I'm highly professional, and that is why I can't remember whether or not I changed my username. So, you know, that's just how it goes. You might be able to find me on Instagram. I'll probably like post on my Twitter what my Instagram is. But yeah, like either tell me in the chat or like on Twitter, like if there's any way like you think I could improve, or like any topics you'd like me to cover. So yeah, without further ado, I think we should really dedicate our time to this incredible intellectual figure. Right. Riveting stuff. Oh, I've never understood the vaporwave aesthetic.
So it finally happened. Russia has violated the national...
Is it just me? Like, I don't want to insult somebody's personal appearance, but like, is it just me, or does Paul Joseph Watson look like the annoying orange? Like, he gives me like... Has somebody made this comment before? I feel like somebody else has made this comment before, like, annoying orange. on screen cap? Why did any of that pick up? Did any of that actually come through? Because I've literally been watching a Paul Joseph Watson video, and it seems to have gone onto my ending screen for some reason. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Did anyone hear what I just said for like the last 5 minutes, or have I been like talking to myself? The joys of live streaming for the first time. Like I am the boomer. I am one with the boomer. Anyway, if you didn't catch what I said just then because my streaming program decided to go crazy, I was talking about how like Paul Joseph Watson seems to think that people's lives being destroyed in wartime. Oh no, you didn't hear any of it? Right. You know what? This is going to be quality entertainment. I am going to go right back to the beginning and I'm going to do the whole segment again. What? I don't know why it keeps doing that. It's happened multiple times. Keeps going on to like ending screen. Oh no, I think, you know what it is? I think it's like revenge for me saying he looked like the annoying orange. That is exactly what it is. Right, I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm wondering if it's because I opened a new tab. It doesn't seem to like it when I open a new tab. So I think I'm going to need to look into what the issue with that is. So yeah, I'm going to put it back to the beginning and watch again. And I'll have the exact same rant that I just had a few seconds ago. I'm very annoyed that it went off. I'm very angry. I'm so fuming. I made some very insightful comments. Just pretend that I made some really insightful comments. I said something incredibly wonderful just then. You're all impressed, I can tell.
So it finally happened. Russia has violated the national integrity of Ukraine.
The essence of the aggressive nationalistic character of the regime that seized power in Kiev hasn't changed.
By sending peacekeeping troops to rebel-held areas in Donetsk and Luhansk, NATO is outraged. Because when they sent troops to rebel-held areas in Libya, who ended up
Since when did you care about Libya? You have never cared about Libya. Just full stop.
toppling Gaddafi, leading to the devastating destabilization of the entire region, leading to the rise of ISIS, leading to numerous mass casualty terror attacks throughout Europe.
Yeah, this was what I was saying. Like, he can't seem to have just like basic empathy with the people of Libya. Like, it's not just like, you know, this awful thing has happened to this war-torn country and these people are like, you know, like having to deal with the fact that they, you know, that they're in this awful, you know, environment, you know, and that they potentially are now displaced and have to flee to other countries. You know, like, no, it's the impact on Europe that concerns him, and also he inflates the impact on Europe.
Leading to the international migrant crisis,
The migrant crisis. I mean, again, I think people fleeing war-torn, not that it would matter if they were migrants. There shouldn't be anything wrong with going between countries to get a better life, whatever the reason. But the way that he, like, you literally just said that they're in a war-torn country, that they've been invaded. You know, I'm pretty sure that's a refugee crisis and not a migrant crisis, you know, like that's people fleeing for their lives. But he has to make this about Europe. Everything has to be about Europe. You know, oh, poor Europe, you know, we're having to deal with people from a different country fleeing from terror and, you know, war.
leading to soaring violent crime and sexual assaults throughout Europe. Well, that...
I mean, no. I mean, again, he has to make this about Europe. You know, it's the ultimate victim complex. People's lives are being destroyed by Western powers, but his ultimate concern is whether or not Europe is okay. you know, and he invents this, again, the historic narrative of dangerous migrants from whatever country they're afraid of this week, you know. No, it's the ultimate victim complex.
That was different. It's okay when we do it. The recognition of the two separatist territories in Ukraine is a blatant violation of international law. Alexa, what's Kosovo? No, that was different. Save me the sanctimonious crap.
Feeling bad about the Crimean annexation does not change the reality of the Crimean.
Who is this person? I don't know who this person is. Who is he?
Annexation being a completely justifiable fucking act by the Russian government, okay? So that's it.
Wait, Hassan Piker redemption arc?
And Hitler invaded countries based on does not change. Feeling bad about the Crimean annexation does not change the reality of the Crimean annexation being a completely justifiable fucking act by the Russian government, okay? So that's it.
Wait, Hassan Piker redemption arc?
And Hitler invaded countries based on Germanic ties at first. What are you talking about? Talk to me when he's throwing Ukrainians at a concentration camp, okay? Hitler wasn't fucking bad because he decided to invade Austria. He was bad.
Hitler wasn't bad because he decided to invade Austria. I mean, like, that's not necessarily the reason he was bad. Like, the whole thing is the reason he was bad, but invading a country is pretty bad as well. Hassan. The sweet child. You know, I find it, this part of this is very interesting. It's interesting to see the Red-Brown alliance being strong between Paul and Hassan.
Because he was fucking killing Jews, okay? That was the problem. He wasn't like, oh yeah, we're gonna fucking annex territory with like Germanic people in it. That wasn't the main problem with Hitler, I think. That was like...
I mean, like, yeah, the main problem with Hitler was that he was genociding Jewish people and people of other marginalized groups. That was the main issue. But his attempts at kind of like invading other territories and attempts to kind of take them over are also not good, because then that gives him more room to exterminate more people. And I think that's kind of what makes Putin dangerous, because, you know, the more he tries to expand, the more countries that will fall under the grip of authoritarianism.
Maybe eighth down the line.
Heartbreaking. The worst person you know just made a great point. Apparently.
The moment that Paul Joseph Watson thinks that you made a great point, that's when, as a leftist, you have to know it's time to stop. And maybe, like, reevaluate your views a little bit.
Vladimir Putin has drawn up a kill list of gays in Ukraine. That sounds like total unmitigated bullshit, but even so...
What? I've never heard of this. Putin drawing up a kill list of gay and ethnic minority Ukrainians ahead of possible invasion. American ambassador to UN. What is this? Where is this cited from? The UN has issued a warning of a possible human rights catastrophe. I mean, is this like... I mean, is this like a kill list of specific people that he feels are dangerous, and that there are specific gay and ethnic minority Ukrainians among that particular list? Or is it like hyperbole? That he's saying, you know, like there's types of people that he wants to get rid of, and that gay people and ethnic minority people could be at risk. You know, like, I'm not seeing what the source of this is.
Gays in Ukraine. That sounds like total unmitigated bullshit, but even so, it's sure to offend the alphabet people. And if there's one thing...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure gay people being murdered would offend the quote-unquote alphabet people. I mean, like, what is his point there even? Like, that gay people don't, and ethnic minority people don't want to be murdered? I mean, maybe I'm giving him too much credit. Like, he hasn't got a point. His whole point is LGBTQ people exist. Haha, isn't that funny? Haha, isn't it funny that they're terrified because Russia is not good, to say the least, on LGBTQ rights? You know, like, I think that there is a legitimate reason for gay people in Ukraine to be pretty frightened. You know, like, I feel like again, like, I noticed, like, it's kind of a similar thing to like what Russell Brand does, like where they make an assertion about something that like hasn't even happened. Like, he'll say like the alphabet people are offended by it, it's sure to trigger them, and like, I mean, for one thing, yeah, because they don't want other LGBTQ people to die. So yeah, they're going to be triggered by it because it's triggering. It's horrifying. But on the other hand, like, he's implying that there's this kind of like mass hysteria from the quote unquote alphabet people, which is a very loaded term, because like he's trying to make out that they're, you know, the hysterical gays who've got like too many different identities and too many different like sexualities now, you know, as is their view. And he's trying to, what he's essentially doing is making something that is a perfectly reasonable statement, perfectly reasonable idea, into something that is hysterical. This is something that like it's basically gaslighting, and it's something that like emotional abusers do a lot. It's like, instead of it being gay people and LGBTQ people in Ukraine are frightened due to Russia's repressive homophobic laws, it's quote unquote alphabet people being offended, you know? It's a pretty skillful use of language to manipulate by a particularly unintelligent person.
He's in Ukraine. That sounds like total unmitigated bullshit, but even so, it's sure to offend the alphabet people. And if there's one thing...
So easily offended, those alphabet people. They're offended by the fear of being murdered and being genocided. They are so easily offended by that direct threat to their lives and to the well-being of other LGBTQ people.
Worse than tearing up the international rulebook and violently invading other countries, it's offending the alphabet people. Make Donbass...
Oh, he's so with the times. 2016 called it wants its homophobia back.
Safe for gay pride parades again. Make Donbass safe for gay pride parades again.
Yes, do make Donbass safe for gay pride parades. Yes, that is what we want. Yes. Oh, press the wrong button again. Am I still live? Yay.
Maybe NATO governments are just jealous of the Kremlin, despotically Maybe NATO governments are just jealous of the Kremlin, despotically brutalizing minority groups.
The whole, like, again, I don't want to make fun of his physical appearance, but he's so pouty. Like, he just looks like the equivalent of like a spoilt child that's like really angry about being told, you know, like he has to get his hand out of the sweet jar. You know, like he just looks so petulant. So petulant. That's the word I'm looking for. Very petulant.
Holding different beliefs. Yeah, I remember seeing that quite recently, and it wasn't in Moscow or Kiev. Recently. Maybe NATO governments are just jealous of the Kremlin, despotically brutalizing minority groups for holding different beliefs. Yeah, I remember seeing that quite recently, and it wasn't in Moscow or Kiev.
Which minority group was this? Truckers? Ah, yes. The, like black rights, trans rights, trucker rights. Yeah, baby. I mean, like, I believe in workers' rights. I believe in, like, rights for, like, long-distance lorry drivers or whatever, but, like, I'm not really seeing how... Are bigots the minority is talking about here? People who like block like important highways that people are trying to travel on for, like, you know, family emergencies. Is this the minority group? Annoying people? Is annoying people the minority group we're talking about here? You know, and also this is not different viewpoint. This is just being a public nuisance.
Justin Trudeau to Putin, hold my beer. So the US and the UK have prepared a powerful set of sanctions, which if...
I want to stress, when I say public nuisance, like, I'm not saying I think it's okay to, like, beat people up for being a public nuisance. Like these people were actively endangering... I want to stress, I'm being serious about this. These people were endangering human life with what they were doing. Like, there was, like, a story I read about a guy who was, like, trying to get his sister, his elderly sister, to hospital for serious medical treatment, but he couldn't because of the sheer amount of, like, truckers, these, like, Canadian truckers on the road. So I'm not particularly sympathetic to this. Also, where were you when they were doing this to Black Lives Matter protesters? Like, double standard, Paul.
Justin Trudeau to Putin, hold my beer. So the US and the UK have prepared a powerful set of sanctions, which if Russia fully invades Ukraine, could include refusing to refer to top Kremlin officials by their preferred pronouns. Which of America...
Oh, he made a pronoun joke. Oh, bless his heart. He thinks he's being relevant. Wonderful.
...'s finest will be dispatched to battle Russian forces in Eastern Europe. Yeah, I'm sure the
Unironically
Spetsnaz will be...
based. Like, I don't like the military, but, like, yeah. Still love trans people who've been through the military. Like, those people are still based.
Shit in bricks.
This is the story of a soldier who operates your nation's Patriot missile defense systems. It begins in California, with a little girl raised by two moms.
T-90 battle tanks will be no match for 38-year-old media relations girl boss Alyssa.
No, he girls.
Two moms.
I mean, like, he almost has a point, but, like, in completely the wrong direction. I mean, like, yes, it's that, it's like the girl bossification of the military. Like, indeed, using LGBTQ people to promote the military and to get, like, vulnerable young people to sign up to warmongering and violence for the rest of their lives that could potentially kill them or injure them and leave them with a huge lack of support for the rest of their lives. I mean, yeah, that's pretty awful, but it's not awful because it's LGBT, you know, it's not awful because LGBTQ people are bad. It's bad because LGBTQ people are another vulnerable group of people who are being used to promote the military. And it's used to promote the military to vulnerable LGBTQ people. So he's like, he almost has a point, but just like, I think again, that's kind of like the interesting thing about, like, when I used to be, like, very, like, anti-leftist, like I took issue with, like, using, like, LGBTQ people in, like, military campaigns, but, like, now I realize why. It wasn't because I was resentful of seeing LGBTQ people. It was because I was resentful that LGBTQ people were being used in this particular way. So he almost has a point. Bless his heart.
T-90 battle tanks will be no match for 38-year-old media relations girl boss Alyssa.
No, he girls never.
About to be deployed to Ukraine, getting briefed by my superior, Putin, here we come. And what about social distancing on the battlefield? Will Russian troops...
I mean, this entire video, like, so far it's just him saying a bunch of buzzwords and then showing you a bunch of things that he thinks are bad and then saying things about them. Like, there's no... The video is called The Truth About Ukraine, but, like, I don't know what his argument is. It's just... So far it's just been, like, LGBTQ people bad. And, you know, Putin not so bad. I'm not really seeing the argument here.
Respect mask rules.
That I will obey the orders. Of the President of the United States.
They're all wearing masks. They are sheeple. What, you know, they are all indoctrinated because they want to keep people safe. You heard it here first.
When Russia's foreign secretary expresses more concern for America's core demographic than the American military top brass.
Russia's Lavrov of surging anti-white racism in the US. asserts that forces within the US are trying to impose a cultural revolution. Oh my god. I mean, so basically what this is Paul Joseph Watson stunning Russia because they are trying to sow division in the US in favor of quote-unquote anti-white racism. I mean, basically this is just him simping for Putin because Putin isn't in favor of Black Lives Matter. Like, imagine supporting like an authoritarian regime, one that was previously leftist, I might add, because like you don't like the gays and black people receiving more rights. Like it's very cucked. It's very cuck energy.
And I want to understand white rage. And I'm white.
It's the topsy-turvy world we're living in. Maybe the US military should have actually been training to fight crack Russian soldiers, not Americans waving Gadsden flags refusing to take booster shots. Maybe it's a blatant violation of international law not to have a giant statue of George Floyd situated outside St. Basil's Cathedral. Note how this...
I mean, it's just like... I think he's like maybe he's like one of those, you know, those like dolls that like you pull like the string at the back and like they have a few phrases. You pull the string and he goes alphabet people. You pull the string and he goes George Floyd. You pull the string and he goes anti-white racism. You know, like he has like the few set lines. Like, this is not a coherent argument. This is just him making snide jokes towards Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ people, and then like standing for Putin. You know, like there's no argument here.
This has all happened under...
He's barely talked about Ukraine. Like, it's more been about like his feelings towards his perceived ideas of like failings of the US military. Like, there's basically been... This is a very stunning face, by the way. Really love this look for him. You know, like, he's barely actually talked about Ukraine at all in this video.
Uncle Joe. Putin didn't attempt any of it under Trump, probably because Trump hasn't yet mentally degenerated to the state where he thinks Kiev is a chicken-based snack. But don't worry.
Again, pull the chain. Biden is got dementia joke. Funny joke from 2020.
Because facing off against Putin is UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, a woman who vowed to support our Baltic allies across the Black Sea. Two different bodies of water more than 700 miles apart. A woman who...
Yeah, I mean, I can agree that she is dumb. Liz Truss is dumb. I find this timeline is super weird because, like, everybody you can almost get like a unanimous agreement on hatred of the Conservative Party of Britain amongst all political groups. We're actually at a stage in which like far-right people, like marginally right-wing people, centrist people, liberals, leftists, far left, like everybody hates the Conservatives, but just like for slightly different reasons. It's probably actually an interesting thing to do a video on at some point, like, because like the far right think they're not right-wing enough and that they, you know, they pandered to the whole lockdown stuff too much, and then like people with a brain and who have eyes and ears and, you know, can process information properly, we think that, you know, like they did nowhere near enough and that they are responsible for the deaths of potentially thousands of people. You know, so, and there's also the fact that they're shit at running the country as well. So it's just kind of very interesting that like everybody across the entire political spectrum of Britain is shared in their hatred of like the current government. Except maybe a few people who like just like, except for like Tory donors and like people who like get funding and like extra support from like the Conservative government, like they are the only people who like still simp for the Conservatives. Like everybody else hates them. It's just a very interesting and weird situation.
appears to be more knowledgeable about cheese than she does basic geography.
We import 2/3 of our cheese. That is a disgrace.
Germany's been...
Okay, that was funny. Like, yeah, Liz Truss is... No, I mean, the entire Conservative Party at the moment is just... Yeah, very out of touch. Incredibly out of touch and in La La Land. They will be the next topic to cover.
Been forced to halt approval for the Russian Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, but don't worry, because European green energy will come riding to the rescue in the form of wind turbines that collapse when it gets a bit too windy.
Right, I mean, again, what has this got to do with Ukraine, sweetheart? Where's Ukraine, sweetheart? Why wind turbine in Wales? What do with Ukraine? What connection? I mean, just that he just doesn't like green energy? I mean, what? I mean, it's not as if fossil fuels are like doing a great job right now. But again, I think this video is supposed to be about Ukraine.
Turbines that collapse when it gets a bit too windy. Leftists are already feverishly exploiting the prospect of World War III to accomplish something far more important than combating Vladimir Putin. Throwing people who express different opinions to them in prison. Harvard professor Lawrence Tribe says Tucker Carlson is guilty of treason. But for what? For saying Biden enjoys combating Vladimir Putin. Throwing people who express different collapse when it gets a bit too windy. Leftists are already feverishly exploiting the prospect of World War III to accomplish some...
I mean, they're kind of doing the opposite. Like, in my experience, they're kind of, like, trying to avoid war, which is a good thing, but, like, they're trying to do it in such a way that, like, does exactly what Paul Joseph Watson is doing in this video, that kind of, like, enables Putin. Like, he's, like... You literally just agreed with Hassan Piker, like 5 minutes ago. So, I don't really think that's what leftists are doing.
Something far more...
The ones that I disagree with, I might add. Like, there are good leftists with good Ukraine takes. I'm not trashing all of us. I'm just saying that the people who are being spoken about in, like, that leftist West-splaining article...
important than combating Vladimir Putin. Throwing people who express different opinions to them in prison. Harvard professor
Lawrence Tribe, I've never heard of this person. Led by Fox News Channel's Tucker Carlson, the GOP's Trump wing appears to be throwing its weight behind Putin. If Putin opts to wage war on our ally Ukraine, such aid and comfort... If Putin opts to wage war on our ally Ukraine, such aid and comfort to an enemy would appear to become treason as defined by Article 3 of the US Constitution. I mean, that's pretty interesting.
The Lawrence Tribe says Tucker...
I don't think he's saying he wants him thrown in prison. I think he's saying it's very interesting that someone such as Tucker Carlson, who proclaims to be somebody who's very kind of seemingly comes across as very patriotic and in support of America, you know, and conservative American culture, is actually in support of the enemy. And, you know, it's just an interesting thing that he would be, you know, technically, he'd be committing treason. Like, it's interesting. I don't really see him suggesting that he thinks Tucker Carlson should go to prison, and I don't know this person, so like I don't know the context surrounding it, but I'm just taking this more as like a general statement.
Carlson is guilty of treason, but for what? For saying Biden enjoys talking about Russia because it's a massive distraction from all his domestic failures.
Russia is a very comfortable topic for Joe Biden. He enjoys talking about it much more than talking about, say, inflation or crime or fentanyl deaths, or about how half the population of Haiti appears to be showing up in Florida in leaky boats.
With the COVID...
I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, a major, like, authoritarian global power invading a much smaller country, you know, like, I'm pretty sure that that is, like, important news, particularly since Russia was, you know, as the Soviet Union, was formerly America's, like, major enemy during the Cold War. You know, like, I'm not exactly defending Biden. Like, he probably will use this. Like, Boris Johnson has definitely done the same thing. Like, the amount of deflection of just like, ignore the wine and cheese parties and direct your gaze to the Ukraine-Russia conflict. You know, like, they're definitely using this, but that doesn't mean that this isn't an important topic, you know? And I feel like so much of this is like whataboutism from the right, whataboutism from the left, like, you know, like, you're, oh, but what about what Joe Biden's doing? Oh, but what about, you know, NATO? Like, you know, like, can't we just focus on, like, what Ukrainian people are going through?
The population of Haiti appears to be showing up in Florida in leaky boats.
With the COVID pandemic.
I hope those people are safe, and I hope they're treated nicely, Mr. Carlson.
Pandemic winding down and turning into a damp squib, legacy media networks like CNN, which just recorded its worst ratings performance for 8 years, are hysterically itching for something new with which to terrify millions of Americans yet again. Despite the fact that one of Ukrainian President Zelensky's closest allies slammed CNN and other media outlets, saying their relentlessly inaccurate predictions about Invasion Day are obviously, quote, fake news and are actually doing serious harm to Ukraine economically.
What? Was this before the invasion? Yeah, it was. Ukraine ally says Western media reports of Russian attack were obviously fake news. I mean, I don't know much about this story or like who this person is or what went on, but like, I mean, Russia did invade. There were attacks. So I don't really feel that this is dated well.
Fake news and are actually doing serious harm to Ukraine economically. We have a regime that's blamed Russia for everything, from the Freedom Convoy protests to anti-vax sentiment to Biden's cognitive decline. So Invasion Day are obviously, quote, fake news and are actually doing serious harm to Ukraine economically. We have a regime that's blamed Russia for everything, from the Freedom Convoy protests to anti-vax sentiment to Biden's cognitive decline. So forgive.
I mean, like, I think Russia definitely does play a role in all of those things. Like, I don't actually know, I haven't actually done that much research into like Russian interference, but it does seem to definitely be an issue. I do think that like there are other issues at play. Like, I think, you know, like, for example, like with the anti-vax sentiment, like a lot of that comes from our own lack of education in this country, like our own levels of misinformation, you know, and I think also in some groups as well, like in minority groups where there's kind of like anti-vaccine sentiment, there's also like distrust of the government because of like how the government has treated them in the past. So like it is a very complex subject, but I don't think you can deny that there's some level of Russian interference going on.
Forgive me for refusing to jump back on the Russian hysteria bandwagon just yet.
Well, that was about the worst thing I've ever seen. I mean, that was very pointless. I just don't feel like I don't really feel like he offered. I mean, that got 755,651 views. I mean, he barely talked about Ukraine at all. He didn't really offer any kind of argument or insight. I mean, I think the entire argument, I mean, it's kind of the most interesting thing is that he's kind of doing on like, again, it's kind of horseshoe theory because he's kind of doing the exact same thing that the leftists are, like not leftists, but you know, like the tankies are doing, and like the leftists who like support this kind of stuff. It's like just say America bad, but like they're saying America bad in kind of like opposite ways. Like the tankies are saying America bad because, you know, like it must be somehow connected to American imperialism, and, you know, like Russia used to be the Soviet Union, and, you know, oh, we stand Stalin, and like that kind of thing. And then like on the American on the the far right side of things. It's like America bad because LGBTQ people in the military, you know, it's like it's the same argument, but it's just like for like completely different reasons. I truly think that we are watching the horseshoe theory come into play like in real time. You know, like it's the same argument, but it's just opposing sides. And you know, seeing the Hassan Piker, Paul Joseph Watson anime crossover that I've been waiting for years is just it's truly inspiring. It really is. We love to see it. We love to see a good anime crossover. So yeah, Paul Joseph Watson, it's probably low-hanging fruit, but I just wanted to see like what he had to say about it. And it's just, I don't know, I just don't feel like he really said that much at all. I think, like I say, his entire argument was just like America bad because LGBTQ people. You know, there was no real analysis of like what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. And, you know, like I get the feeling that there's some level of admiration for Putin within what he's saying. So yeah, just not good. Not good content. I really do not understand why this person is still racking up that amount of views. When he said basically little to nothing at all. He's just put like a bunch of like jokes, inside jokes in. Which is generally what the far right are very good at. So yeah, I don't really feel like the title of this video, The Truth About Ukraine, is particularly accurate. I don't feel like I've found any other truth. I just feel like I've got somebody else's skewed narrative. Not particularly impressed. So yeah, not particularly impressed with that. Yeah, so I'm gonna take a little look at some of the comments and in chat, and then probably gonna pack in for the night because I'm kind of sleepy. A lot of friends have kind of made fun of me because I like an early night. Like I get tired, I get sleepy. I'm like a little old, like I say, I'm a little old cat lady. So I'm gonna take a little look at some comments. Like I think when I'm more prepared in future, like I'll have obviously like I'll have chat on the screen. I was really underprepared for this stream. One thing, I mentioned that I would talk about like lots of different topics, most of which I haven't managed to address properly because there was just so much to cover with this. So I think I'm going to be a bit more cautious with like the different things that I decide to cover with the next one. And I think the other thing is like obviously I want to get like chat on the screen and like a few other things, and obviously integrate. Like I'd like to go on Twitch as well. So those are kind of my plans for the next few videos. So I'm going to take a look at some of the comments. Yeah, Trout with Clout. I love that. I love that username. People all hate the Tories, but they'll still get the votes to win. Yeah, I mean it's weird. It's like this weird. I feel like there must be like a weird Venn diagram out there of like people who hate the Tories and people who vote for the Tories, but it's like literally the same two groups. And I think you know, I think a lot of it comes from hatred of migrants and refugees. I think a lot of it does stem from that, because I feel like, and support for Brexit, because I feel like some people are just like, oh yeah, I hate the Conservatives, but I'll vote for anything just to like just to get them out, you know, like that's their kind of mentality. Like, and I think the Conservatives have an incredibly good like PR team, certainly with the last election. My hope is that with the next one, their ratings are just going to be so poor that they just can't sustain it anymore. Kind of like how Trump was, you know. So I kind of hope it's going to go in that direction, but it's very hard to tell with people, because it's the kind of thing where it's like You know, Boris Johnson murders a young, like a puppy. Boris Johnson literally murders a puppy. His approval rating rises by 50%. You know, like he could do the worst thing imaginable, and he would like, you'll see the ratings go up. It's baffling, truly baffling. They're blowing Russian troops in the wrong direction. Oh yeah, about the wind turbines. Dave says, I'm an alphabet people and I would ideally prefer to not be murdered by the state. Crazy, I know, total hysterics. This, again, like, this is something I kind of want to talk about in, like, other videos, like how LGBTQ people and women in particular get portrayed about, like, any concern, any legitimate concern about, like, not being killed is, like, hysterical. I mean, I really feel like Paul Joseph Watson kind of, like, really, like, I mean, he's always been mask off, but like as far right, but like that is so obvious, overtly, like saying you don't care that LGBT, you know, like you don't care if gay or trans people die. Like you genuinely believe, he genuinely seems to believe that LGBTQ people being in fear of a homophobic authoritarian regime is hysterical. You know, like imagine being that like sociopathic towards an entire group of people. I think he really shows his I think he shows his attitude there. He's probably done it on other occasions. But yeah, I find that to be quite telling. Are statue defenders a minority group? Yeah, I think so in their eyes. I think they tend to think certain types of opinion should be like a protected characteristic. A lot of the comments seem to be, yeah, a lot of comments about after my ending screen coming on randomly. I really need to like figure out why that is happening. That is going to be my next mission. Yeah, I never really found Russell Brand that funny. Like, I like Noel Fielding. Noel Fielding. I thought he was really funny. I think, were they on like, there was like, oh, that show that was on at the end of the year. Was it like the Big Fat Quiz of the Year? I used to watch, I think he was on that. He and Noel Fielding like did one together, and I remember finding that really, really funny. And like, thinking that was hilarious. But I think, to be honest, I think it was more like Noel doing the comedy. Like, I don't know, there was a big, I don't know the exact details. There was like a big incident with Russell Brand and I think another comedian. Didn't they send like really like a racist message to like the guy who played Manuel in Fawlty Towers? Like, I remember there being a really huge scandal about it, and he was like disgraced from the industry at the time. You know, like I remember that happening and thinking like, yeah, that's really disgusting. But I don't actually know the details of what happened. So maybe I need to do more research into the Russell Brand lore, the Russell Brand backstory, Russell Brand, you know, discourse. But yeah, he's not really a figure that I particularly view as trustworthy. But maybe he's done some funny stuff. So I think I am going to actually end the stream for real this time. Not press the wrong button as is usual. I've really enjoyed this. Like I thought this was really fun to do. I hope that you all enjoyed it too, and that you got something out of it. And yeah, I would genuinely like to know what people thought, if there's anything that I could improve on, or if they're, yeah, Russell Brand Extended Universe. Like, it's like the sequel to like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, the next one is like the whole Russell Brand. Yeah, it wasn't racist. Russell had slept with Manuel's granddaughter, and him and Jonathan Ross left an answer message talking about it. I feel like there's a lot more to this than I know. I don't want to accuse somebody of being racist without that actually happening. Okay, I'm gonna look into this. I'm gonna look into the in-depth lore of the Russell Brand extended universe, and hopefully add to this. So yeah, let me know if there's anywhere I could improve, or if there's anything that you'd like me to cover. And I'm going to aim to the topics I didn't cover in this video, I'm going to aim to cover in a future video. So hopefully you'll join me for that, and hopefully there won't be any more technical difficulties in that one. So thank you so much for supporting me in doing this. Like, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for everyone who's watched. And, you know, like, even if you just watch for like a few minutes, like, I really appreciate it. And yeah, so thank you so much. So I'm gonna actually press the ending screen for realsies this time. Thank you, bye.